I mean, were you aware of this eating disorder she had in the early 80s?
Well, you knew things weren't quite what they should be, but you're saying with the foods, what I always had in the kitchen was there was a small fridge, and I used to leave things in the fridge that she liked.
What kind of things did you cook for the then Princess Diana and Prince Charles?
Their food is quite simplistic. You know, they love simple foods, but always very good quality foods and very organic.
As William got older, of course, and he was very keen to go to burger bars and pizza places that didn't really sit that comfortably with his father.
Hi, I'm Matt Wilkinson, and welcome to a special edition of Royal Exclusive. Because with me today is not only former Royal Protection Officer Ken Wharfe, but also Mervyn Wycherley, who was a royal chef to the late Queen and Princess Diana and the then Prince Charles for 33 years. Welcome to you both. I introduced you there, Mervyn, obviously for being a royal chef for 33 years, which is a long, long time to do any job. This is quite an exciting time to get you in for a chat. Are we excited, Ken?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've known this guy for many, many years, and you know, even for us, you know, he served up some delightful meals, courtesy of the boss, of course, the king as he is now, but then the Prince and Princess of Wales. But we were very lucky to have this guy with his experience, but also great chef, but a good mate.
Absolutely.
You wouldn't disagree with that, would you?
Oh, I certainly wouldn't.
Well, let's get stuck into some things that happened when you were serving the Queen and Diana and Charles. Now, I've got written down here that one of your first jobs for Diana and Charles was the honeymoon. This was August 1981. If I was going to go on a honeymoon, I wouldn't expect to have all this staff and a personal chef. But what was it like going with Charles and Diana on this Mediterranean honeymoon back in 1981?
Well, I was very lucky. I'd worked with Her Majesty the Queen Elizabeth before for 10 years, and I transferred over for the honeymoon, and I became their head chef on that day and stayed with them for all of their married life. But when we went on honeymoon, there was just myself. We were a very small staff in those days. Just myself, there was a valet, a dresser, 2 policemen, private secretary, an equerry. Everybody travels with them. And of course, 250 sailors. So it was very private too.
Very private honeymoon.
Yes.
What kind of things did you cook for the then Princess Diana and Prince Charles?
Their food is quite simplistic. You know, they love simple foods, but always very good quality foods and very organic. And it's always been the same. The whole of the family have an interest in food, especially His Royal Highness. The King now, he is very, very interested in his food and enjoys having putting his oar in and with menus and all sorts of things.
Well, we imagine, we talk about a royal family, Ken, or I imagine like a huge banqueting table with every single food luxury you can imagine on this table. Is that what it was like?
Not at all, no, very simplistic. As I said, if dinner was done in Highgrove and it was just there on their own, they would just have card tables in the drawing room and have a very simple dinner. It's just a first course, main course, dessert.
Do the royals, you both probably know this, but please tell us, do the members of the royal family, do they request certain foods, or is the food kind of decided for them throughout the week?
No, there is a menu book that goes up every week or every few days to be cleared, and it gives an option of first courses, main courses and desserts, and they then have a selection of and there are foods that are known and liked, and of course when things come into season and things come off the estates, the venison and the grouse and the salmon and all that, and the pheasants come in from Sandringham, and that's when all these things are used.
But quite often, though, I remember this recipe book you call it a menu book. You know, Mervyn would sort of write out a week at a time, suggestions for both the prince and the princess at that time. But very often, if I remember, because I remember the princess would very often come in and sit in the kitchen with you, Merv, and whatever you'd written down in the book, you'd knock it up in the kitchen, and she would eat it, astride the chest freezer or whatever. So it was quite an informal, meeting really. But I think that was the whole thing about the Kensington Palace, certainly from the mid-80s onwards, because Diana, I always was of the opinion that was always what she was to tell me, but that she wanted the chef, the the butler, the driver, to be part of this wider family. So, you know, to try, which was quite opposite what the Prince of Wales wanted at that time. But this was Diana's style. But I mean, you know, the actual food that Mervyn prepared, together with additional staff there, was generous in the sense that we as policemen and other members of the staff enjoyed very much, you know, the skill and the cooking that Mervyn and his staff would prepare. We were very lucky.
Oh, I see. So you got to eat some of the food.
Well, we did, yeah. I mean, you know, God, how lucky were we?
Well, one of the main things is His Royal Highness always insisted that the staff be well fed. It's an army marches on its stomach, and if you've got a happy staff, they've been well fed, they will go that extra mile and will go without sometimes. So
talk us through. You talk about simplistic food. As I say, in my mind, I thought it was, you know, this huge banquet on a table every night. But was it really that simplistic? I mean, what would happen then? They would have a menu card.
Yes.
You'd draw up a menu card,
yes.
And then they would choose what meal to have.
Yeah.
3 meals a day?
Yes, you have. Well, you have lunch, you have breakfast, which is always an important meal because that's the start of the day. His Royal Highness is very, very keen on a good breakfast and all the compots of fruit and very that sort of thing, mueslis and Her Royal Highness as well. But then there'd be lunch. Tea was just a cup of tea. It was never a full blown like Her Majesty the Queen used to have. With cakes and things like that, and scones for the corgis. And then dinner at 8 o'clock.
Scones for the corgis?
Oh, absolutely.
What would be on the menu if you cast your mind back to the 80s with Charles and Diana?
It was always, as I said, stuff, the grouse and the salmon, and I used as much as possible. And, of course, it all depended if the guests were coming. And then we'd find out we had a regular sort of coming of certain people, and you got to know exactly what these guests like, and certain dishes. So I'd always make sure that these went on when these people were arriving, and it was just got used to It was simple, but it was all there. So.
You talked about making food for guests. Did you make food for the dogs, or was it?
Yes, yeah,
Really?
yes. Oh, God, yes. Got to feed the dogs.
Please tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, well, no, it's just very simple. I must say, Her Majesty the Queen's dogs, they really were well looked after, but ours were a little more simplistic, and because we were always on the go, and Harvey, the Prince as he was then, his Labrador, he stayed actually in Norfolk most of the time. He didn't come to us, so we didn't have dogs very often there.
But the royal families are very well known for their animals, aren't they, Ken? With the Queen and her corgis and their love of horses. But I've never heard before that the royal chef would make the pets.
Oh, absolutely.
Their lunch. What happened? The animals wouldn't have menu cards.
No. But there would be a list of what they liked. I would say some days there's rice and beef and all sorts of things. Just
but for the
how they
pets?
Yeah.
Really?
Absolutely.
That's fascinating.
Yes.
Well, luckily, I mean, when I say luckily, they were the only two dogs that existed when I came were the
Tigger and Roo.
Tigger and Roo. But I mean, I don't recall them getting any special food.
No. It's just our place was Kensington and Highgrove were very much more simplistic. It was Her Majesty the Queen that was really looked after their dogs in that way.
What I do remember actually talking about food and so forth, that and you know, gifts were sort of sent up to the kitchen. I remember the King of Spain sending up boxes of oranges, but I just suddenly remembered. I think it was when, following Diana's visit to Pakistan, the then Benazir Bhutto sent over this special crate of
mangoes.
And I remember, Chef, you and others making literally buckets of fresh mango ice cream. You know, it's kind of like, but all these mangoes had come all the way from Pakistan as a gift from the then Benazir Bhutto. But yeah, great times in the old kitchen there.
Yeah, but if we had gifts like that, it would always be written to the menu book that this was using so-and-so, so a gift of so-and-so, and the thank you letters would go out to these people to say, send me more. Lovely.
Yeah. But one of your specials, Merv, if I'm correct, was from the oranges from Spain, was your orange vodka.
And gin.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, here we go.
Was that a favourite? Was that a favourite?
Oh, absolutely. And you should know all about that anyway.
Well, I'm not going to talk about it, but I think the Prince liked the orange vodka.
Yes, it used to go out hunting, and it is a very warming drink.
You didn't need many of them.
How would you come up with this orange vodka?
Oh no, His Royal Highness had found the recipe somewhere. As I said, he's very interested in his food and good things like that, and so he got the recipe from somewhere, some lady.
So during the time with Charles and Diana, that they would occasionally make special requests of.
Oh yes,
yeah.
Could I do this? Could I do? Well, it's never a problem. That's what
kind-
you're there for.
Can you remember anything that they would come up with during that time? Anything
No, I
anyone
can't really. In fact, they used to bring a lot of recipes back from Switzerland when they used to go skiing. I never went out there. They stayed at the Arlberg.
Yeah, they did bring. I mean, you usually get sort of real top cuisine at this sort of 5-6-star hotel in Lech, where Diana and William and Harry went there for 4 or 5 years. I mean, the food was as good as yours, maybe. Don't
Be careful.
But I mean, the recipe would come back. But I think it was a short-term fix, really. I don't think that she was in a way changing the royal menus. But talking of food, I think what I remember once where the Prince and the King, as you know, was very peculiar about the sort of food that he wanted, well, his family and the staff to eat. As Mervyn rightly said, he believed that the army marched on its stomach, and I know that's true. But as William got older, of course, and he was very keen to go to burger bars and pizza places that didn't really sit that comfortably with his father. And I remember coming back from the pizza place in the burger bar in Kensington High Street, which was with Bill Wyman's place, the Rolling Stones.
Sticky Fingers.
Sticky Fingers. And William came back and the Prince was there. And he said, oh, where have you been? He said, oh, Papa, he said, we just had these amazing burgers. And he said, and there was this sort of look of disdain that came across the Prince's face. And he said, I don't know why you eat that food when I have this marvellous army of chefs at Kensington Palace. But, I think he probably now realises that's how it was in the late 80s, early 90s, that but Diana sort of really wanted to experiment away from Mervyn's food at the palace at that time.
We know that Charles is not peculiar, but he's very picky about his food.
Yes.
Would Diana order different things to Charles? How would it work?
No. Well, the menus were always done, and favourites were always put in, sort of thing. But you were saying with the burger incident, it was a treat for the boys. They really didn't often do that sort of thing because all of their friends used to do it. Yeah. But other than that, they stuck at home and had things. And they were real nursery food. It was the old treacle tarts and things like that.
When you were there, were Charles and Diana treated things like caviar or foie gras or anything like that?
No, I'm saying only if they came in as gifts. Foie gras was out of bounds until...
Right.
And things like that. But caviar would be given as gift, and that would be used very liberally if it ever came across the door. Very nice.
We started talking about, when we started the show, we were talking about obviously the honeymoon, the Mediterranean honeymoon, but that wasn't the only foreign travel that you did with Charles and Diana.
No.
How does it work if you're on the Royal Yacht Britannia? Because you're away for months, right, Ken? You're away for several months sometimes. How do you get all the food onto the Royal Yacht Britannia, keep it there, and make sure that they've got enough to fill these menus that you've set up for them?
With the yacht, we were actually 3 weeks was normally the length of our tours for that, and it would be stocked up about 3 months in advance because the yacht took a long time to get anywhere. Yeah. It wasn't exactly the speediest boat, and I'd work out virtually what we would need on board and ship it on board, and then we would fly out to join them wherever they're, if Australia or in the Caribbean or wherever, and I would fly out all the fresh fruit and veg, especially from Highgrove if we had some, and all the milk and cream flew out with us, and it was quite a production.
So this is, for instance, they did go to Australia around that time, didn't
yes,
they? So you must have flown out.
We flew out of that. We couldn't take much food on that. I had to buy locally because of Australian laws. They don't like you taking in anything too suspicious. And we were, I think it's nearly 3 months we were at Rumagma. I was with William there. He was only about 6 months old. And there's just myself, a butler, and the nanny.
Was it with foreign travel in particular? Was it exceptionally challenging as a chef? Because it must be challenging anyway, knowing that you're cooking for the future king and his wife and their family.
Not at all, really. You just take it in your stride because things have to be done, and they do. It all gets done, and you have a wonderful team of people around you that are very, very helpful. On the yacht, I mean, see, you couldn't go wrong because the yacht was full of very talented sailors who could do anything. If anything broke, they'd just repair it, or they'd make another one, or they were very, very helpful.
Did you?
And everybody was helpful.
Yeah, I think I'm right in saying, Merv, that whilst you went out there to represent, the Prince and Princess of Wales at that time, but you shared a kitchen there with royal chefs as well. So you had a brigade there, or were they peculiar?
Oh, on the yacht.
On the yacht.
Oh,
yes.
on the yacht. Yeah, we always there would be myself, but I would take chefs, the naval chefs from the galley. There was Swampy, of course, who was yes, he was like the liaison between the navy and the royal party, and it was good experience for the naval sailors to work with some of the stuff that we took on to be working with, because naval grub doesn't always come up to that sort of standard. So as much as they try, and no, it was considered a good experience for them, and it helped me out no end, and we got through. I must say we didn't do too much in that state dinners. We did occasional ones.
You did say you're painting a picture of some great preparation, great products, from Highgrove, and great, wonderfully sourced food. You said that nothing could go wrong. Did anything go wrong? Did it all go swimmingly throughout all these years?
It was marvellous. Of course it not. I really can't. I mean, there were some stressful moments when things hadn't arrived, but we managed to worm our way around it and get things done.
Yeah, no one fell ill. I'm just trying to cast my mind back to...
Absolutely not. No, that never happened. No, it was amazing how you could get things done. And as I said, everybody was so helpful. And they were so, the tradesmen, they would bend over backwards to make sure you got all your things on board. And in fact, when we went to a lot of countries, the embassies there would arrange with local people, fishmongers, etc. And I go to the markets and go shopping like that. It was terrific experiences.
And did they? You mentioned earlier, Ken, that Diana would sometimes come down in Kensington Palace. Is this right? Did I hear right? And she would maybe eat in the kitchen.
Oh yeah.
With you.
Yes.
Did that happen regularly? Did you have a lot of time with them,
yes,
members of the royal family?
The princess spent a lot of time in the kitchen. In fact, reading The Sun, which wasn't allowed in the house.
You smuggled it in?
My maid.
Your maid, yeah. Well, that's quite a regular thing, Matt. I think it was part of Diana's character, because she had this sort of very friendly approach to all members of her staff, actually. And, the kitchen, I like in everyone's house, really, is a focal meeting point for life. And, Diana would often say to me, what are you doing? I say, well, come down, we're going to have a coffee with Mervyn or something. So, and there would be a right place to exchange effectively local gossip within the household, but so it was quite a good place to exchange.
It was who was doing what,
information.
Who was going where. Well, that's a lot of these houses survive on people talking to each other. Did you know the boss was doing so-and-so? Did you know they were there? No, and of course these things make a lot of difference. And talking to the chauffeurs and people like that.
I just think they're interesting about other things. I suddenly came across my mind, Mervyn, was with the shooting parties at Sandringham. Mm-hmm. So, the chef there, the kitchen there, would prepare, the lunch for the royal shooting party that would often go in one of the shooting lodges on the estate. Yeah. What always made me laugh was that all this sort of wonderful food being prepared to be taken up in hampers to the shooting lodge. Then if you looked out of the kitchen window, you'd have the beaters and the gamekeepers on the backs of tractors. And Mervyn and others would knock up this massive great stew. Do you remember? This soup. Yeah. So you had, by comparison, you had this wonderful produce going out of the shooting lodge, and yet there were buckets of this this stew, which actually, I must say, I had it was brilliant.
Exactly.
So
and it was warm and tasty.
it was with
Kept them
chunks of
going.
bread.
You guys are making me feel hungry now, actually. I feel like we should have bought some lunch or bought some croissants or something like this for this. Listen, we've been talking about Diana. Obviously, you mentioned there, but she used to come down and be with you in the kitchen at Kensington Palace, and you were the chef. We may have to touch on her eating disorder. I mean, were either of you aware of, I mean, you were the chef, I mean, were you aware of this eating disorder she had in the early 80s?
Well, you knew things weren't quite what they should be, but, it's not my place to ever criticise or...
Sure, no, absolutely.
And it was her life, and I'm afraid I couldn't criticise. But you're saying with the foods, what I always had in the kitchen was there was a small fridge, and I used to leave things in the fridge that she liked, and cold lamb cutlets in mint aspic and things like that. But so she could just snack whenever she wanted to, and of course with the illness there was bowls of custard, which were obligatory, I fear. But
did she ever mention that to leave food out, or it's something?
No, I always did that, because often when they went out for dinners, and she always maintained the fact they go to dinners and they could never eat because people don't want to see them eating. They want to actually talk all the time. And so they could go to these dinners, chop a few things up, and not eat anything. They come back absolutely starving. So I always left stuff in the fridge so that they could have something to snack on.
Yeah, I mean, in that question, Matt, I mean, I didn't join the household until the mid-'80s, so Diana did talk about it, but yes, it was serious. It was an eating disorder. But by the time I arrived there, I mean, luckily that that illness had moved on. But I've always known Diana had an amazing appetite, and I think Mervyn would agree with that. I mean, her favourite restaurant at that particular time was San Lorenzo's in Beecham Place, and great Italian cuisine there. Diana was always talking about the quality of food, and I think generally, it's fair to say, Merv, that she had a good liking and a good taste for good produce. She was very fortunate to have a kitchen that she did at Kensington Palace and other places.
Yeah, and an excellent chef. What was it, before we move on from the Waleses, what was it like cooking for William and Harry? Is it a case of the family would all sit, as I mentioned earlier about this big round table, and the whole family would sit together? Would William and Harry sit with their parents?
Children are in the nursery until they're about 10.
Right.
And with the nanny. And often they would go, the principals would go and dine in the nursery along with them, rather than have the children in the dining room.
And what would you cook for William and Harry?
Oh, well, they really had the basic. It was all the old cottage pies and, as I said, treacle tarts and all that sort of thing. Very, very nutritious and good, substantial food.
Did any of them show any inclination that they might want to help you out and cook in the kitchen?
No, they sometimes got drafted by the nanny to go downstairs and help the chef. So, oh yes, thank you. The nanny was trying to get rid of them. Obviously, they wanted to do something, so they sent them down. Let's make pastry. So
the boys?
Yes, yeah. But that didn't happen too often, thankfully.
Was it edible pastry?
I wouldn't have thought. I wouldn't go near it myself.
But Charles, before we move on, Charles must, as I say, he's a foodie, or he's really into his food, his organic produce.
Yes.
I mean, was that hammered into you as his chef that this is how he wanted his food to be cooked?
I mean, there was nothing ever said, but it was an absolute fact that we all knew that that's what he enjoyed. And it was, you just carry on from there.
Was there anything? Oh, sorry.
No. I think that where I witnessed, his particular interest in food, because at Highgrove there was a very sizable vegetable garden, a walled vegetable garden, and it was, immaculately and brilliantly maintained by, a fleet of gardeners, and this is something that the Prince, really loved, and we all know just his interest in gardening. I mean, one of the first things he ever did at Highgrove, before my time, admittedly, was the thyme path. He was a great user of fresh herbs. But the actual garden itself, he would go down with, the sort of the wooden basket and select certain vegetables for him and return back to the kitchen. So, that was clearly evidence of his, liking of good quality food, and something that even to this day that he has a special interest in. And, would very much discuss, I think, with you what was, current produce in the garden.
Yes, well, what's coming up, and he would always see, he would take great notice and interest. And as you said, he'd bring his trug back with all the little bits of carrots and whatever, and have
the word I was searching for.
Trug.
Trug, sorry. The royal trug.
What does that mean?
It's the wooden basket, the gardener's basket. And it'd always have the fresh vegetables, which he'd literally just picked, and he would have that with his dinner 10 minutes later. It's a bit of a worry where he rushes upstairs to change, comes back down, and it's all ready. But
if I've heard you right there, Charles would go out and pick his own vegetables.
Oh yes, just a few for dinner. That was it. If he was on his own.
And also another interesting point about food was that at that particular time, the Gloucestershire Police Constabulary had the responsibility for, the security of Highgrove, and the Prince was very keen on fresh eggs. Well, there were, I don't know how many chickens, but there were quite a few chickens at that time. And suddenly one of the officers of the constabulary appointed himself as the sort of chief chicken carer. And I remember this guy vividly, who would, knowledge that the prince and the princess were arrived, he'd gather up the week's eggs. And I think they were Marron chickens, if I remember rightly, that gave that very dark brown egg. So, everybody within the estate was involved in some way of providing food for the Prince and Princess of Wales. It'd be quite interesting that whether that still exists, whether the Gloucester Constabulary still have a chicken care or not, remains to be seen. With budgets, I probably think not.
I need to look into that. Yeah, you've given me a good idea.
Let me know.
I'm going to leave this interview and I'm going to try and find out. Can we talk about a little bit about the late Queen? So you started off in 1972.
Yes.
That would be at Buckingham Palace, I
Yes.
assume, or Windsor Castle.
It is at Buckingham Palace.
Buckingham Palace. So one of many chefs cooking for the late Queen, I assume.
There were 25 when I started.
Yeah.
But you think that's a lot. But so what happens is never really more than 8 on duty at a time, unless it's state banquets or the like, or diplomatic receptions. And of course, all the travelling that has to be taken into consideration, because everything was transported and all the chefs, you went house to house. And the Queen was more, Her Majesty was more into one place. So she would stay in Buckingham Palace and then she'd go to Windsor at the weekend. But then Sandringham was always in January, February, and then Balmoral was the 3 months. Whereas now His Majesty travels a great deal more.
Yes.
He is it's a Meals on Wheels with him.
With the late Queen, I asked this question about all the royals, but did she have any specific food likes or dislikes?
Not so much, no. I think with Her Majesty the Queen, it was a matter of staying alive. Her interests were really the animals and the horses and the dogs. That was the love of her life. She loved all those things. Food wasn't as important to her as the rest of it.
So I do remember a story back about 20 years ago that the Queen would have food out of Tupperware boxes. Do you remember that, Ken?
Oh, yeah, with the breakfast stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
How did that work? Because you're a highly qualified, experienced chef.
No, it's keeping it all fresh. It's fine. And there's no waste. They abhor waste. That is absolutely. And His Royal Highness would never have waste if you can use something up again. And in fact, if... for a lunch, a very light lunch, he'd have a egg mousse. If there were any left, he'd have that as a salad in the evening with his main course.
An egg mousse?
Egg mousse, yes.
So how would it work with the Tupperware boxes then? So that would be food
They'd just be replenished
over.
when it was needed. More stuff needed to go in with the dried fruits, and so it just kept everything fresh.
Wow. But so it wouldn't be the main meals.
Oh God, no!
Or
no. No. There's just these row of boxes to open up.
But about the Queen's food, you did the Sandringham legs, didn't you? Not Sandringham, Balmoral.
Yeah.
Because I just think about the preparation of food for the barbecues.
Oh, the barbecues. Well, they used
Well,
to
of
go
course,
out.
was it the King and Philip and
Yes.
and Queen
Duke of
who did the
Edinburgh.
barbecues? You
Oh,
go to-
absolutely.
You put your feet up and watch them
Big
do it,
time.
or-
I don't think so. No, you also have to remember there's an awful lot of staff to feed as well, and it's all part of the duty, and keeping the ball rolling, as it were. But no, the Duke of Edinburgh, he loved his barbecues, and but everything went out, it prepped, and all the salads and whatever. Really, all they had to do was peel off the lids and just spoke up with the barbie, and that was it.
Something I've never asked you about in terms of provisions there, because there were some very good suppliers in nearby Ballater.
Oh,
weren't
absolutely.
there? So
No,
did you go down into Ballater and or was it something you did over the phone or whatever?
No, mostly over the phone. But I go down and pick things up frequently. I did on one occasion. Bread, they couldn't deliver it for something in the morning. I'd got up pretty early, and I drove down to Ballater, and it was a frosty morning with snow all over the cars. Press pack were waiting outside as the norm, because they never left us alone, and they couldn't see who was driving. They followed me all the way down to Ballater, about 12 miles away, and I got out of the Range Rover. They thought it was one of the family going in the Range Rover, and it was me picking up the bread. And of course, at that, they then thought it was a total decoy, and the principals had left the house by another route, using me as a decoy.
I'm trying to think who they likened you with, Mervyn.
I hate to think.
Did you ever get involved in any of the big events? I'm just thinking Christmas dinner, because we just had Christmas dinner recently at Sandringham.
Yes, yeah. Oh, yeah, there's always the big Christmas lunches and things like that.
What happens on Christmas dinner? Because we're talking like this year we had 43 members of the royal family were at Sandringham. And I do wonder, who does the cooking, who does the washing up? What happens at Christmas?
Not the chef, I can tell you. No, there's a full brigade up there. There'll be about 8 staff up there and 8 chefs. And as I said, there's the maids, there's butlers, there's everybody else. It's a big production. But it's all part and parcel of the life that goes around.
Well, it's such a well-trodden machine.
Yes, it is. It's a well-oiled machine as well.
What happens though, Matt, is that everything is a repeat of the year gone by, and you could argue that they're all creatures of habit in a sense. Journeys are planned, weekends are planned away, and I don't know what it's like now. I mean, we're talking some time ago, but I remember Mervyn, you in the 80s, getting into that Ford Granada estate and packing the entire kitchen to go down to Highgrove at that point, and then unload and sort of cook the weekend and bring it all back again. I guess that's changed now, because I think they have permanent chefs placed at at Highgrove and Sandringham likewise. I guess, I don't know.
Yes, it has. It has all changed, but the whole catering industry has changed. In those days, when I first started, it was really dead men's boots. If you went there for a job, people were there for centuries. 30, 40 years service was absolutely nothing. And but now it's, they come, do 3 years, it's on your CV, and they're off to Saudi or they're off to America, and they don't get the service in as they used to. To the point that there was the old palace steward, he'd retired years. And there was a political, and I can't remember what it was, the political change of events, and it had only happened once in about 1940, and Cyril was the only bloke that he'd retired years, so they had to go round and see him and actually sort it all out.
Tradition.
It was a tradition, and how do you behave in this sort of thing?
That was something that always appealed to me, was this tradition of how royal households worked. And you mentioned there the late Cyril Dixon, who was the Queen's page. I mean, a man that had been there for many, many years. But I remember my first ever appointment in Balmoral, and I was shown into the dining room, the steward's room. And I had no idea that it was a big no-no to sit in the steward's chair, which I did. And suddenly I was sort of confronted with all those men from the back staff effectively telling me to get out because the stewards go, although actually Cyril never really objected.
No.
But it was a tradition of royal life that I'm sure to this day still continues. In maybe a different format.
Different form, yes.
Fascinating. You mentioned that the Duke of Edinburgh obviously is famous for his barbecues, and that the boys, William and Harry, would occasionally come down and help out with a pastry. Did any other members of the royal family ever come into the kitchen and get their hands, dirty, so to speak?
No. That's what you have staff for.
So I need to ask you about the Duchess of Sussex. Obviously, after both your time working there,
yes.
but obviously you were familiar with her work, so to speak. She's recently brought out a Netflix show. She's announced a Netflix show. We've seen the trailer, and that this show will come out. She's delayed it till March the 4th because of the LA fires, which is the right thing to do, quite frankly. It's all about her life in California. Have you had the chance to watch the trailer?
I have seen snippets of it, and I don't think that kitchen's seen much action in its time. I think if you open one of the cupboard doors, you find the speed dial of all the local restaurants.
Well, we're led to believe, or I think we're told that it's not actually her Montecito mansion.
Yeah, that would account for an awful lot.
I think there was things on there. I think there was some of the meals that she was making. I mean, do you think this is a good move for a member of the royal family to display this, or to show her cooking, to show this life that she's having there in California?
Well, it's a bit of a fashion magazine sort of thing, isn't it? It's what ladies at lunch, and what wonderful. And in actual fact, it's got nothing to do with the reality.
Well, I think to answer that question, Matt, I don't think it's really relevant. I think we know that both the Duke and Duchess of Sussex actually doing their own thing. And I think this is just a continuum of their lifestyle. I haven't seen the trailer. I'd be interested to see actually what recipes and the format that follows on Netflix. But it's sure to be a money-making machine. Seems to be what their game is. And of course, yes, they are still members of the British royal family, but effectively, isolated, out of the real action of the monarchy that we know today. So I don't think anyone should be really surprised at it. I hope that what Meghan knocks up is something that receives worthy comment, but I don't know. But I think it's just another strand of their life that I don't think any one of us should be surprised, that it's happened.
Yeah, I can't get upset about it. I know there's been lots of people talking about the show and raising questions and concerns, but I think that's their new life in California. Yeah. We've got angry about them in the past, about things that they've done, appearing on TV shows or writing books. And if Meghan is to do a cookery show about her life in California, my view is just let her do it. I mean, go away in California and enjoy your new life. But there doesn't seem for me to be any tidbits or ideas that she's taken from the Buckingham Palace kitchen or the Kensington Palace
Well,
kitchen.
she would never have known it.
Yeah.
Never have known it.
I can't see any lamb cutlets and a prawn aspect on that one.
I certainly can't.
She knows that exists, but watch this space, Matt, I think, on this one.
Yeah, we'll have to wait till March and see we'll get you back on March and we'll ask about what you think of her cookery skills.
Oh, dear.
You could be a guest on the programme.
I feel it.
You could take it as a no.
Oh, no.
A menu consultant.
They look far too professional for me.
Just finally, before we wrap up, can I just ask you, who was your favourite member of the royal family, to cook for?
I've enjoyed my time enormously with all of the family. They've been incredibly good to me, and I had the years I was with them was a lot, very, very enjoyable. And there was no favourites, really. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and they were very kind.
Can I ask you about the corgis, finally? Did you...
No, they never bit me. No, I never really came into contact with them. They were kept well out of the way.
But you cooked for the corgis?
Yeah, that's all right. Oh, no, the food all goes, a footman taken up, and it's all in a pantry. That was the old days, but things have all changed. Now We
were very lucky from the police in the team, because Mervyn, if we were travelling back to London, say from Highgrove, one of his favourite sandwiches was the coronation
chicken.
You
used to like that.
And treacle tart was a great special of mine, Mervyn, I think.
I know you like that.
You knocked up that. And all the cottage pies, all the basic good food.
You have to provide for all these people.
Well, thank
fact-
you, Mervyn, and thank you for the then Prince of Wales.
The royals were absolutely no problem. It was the policemen that were the nightmare.
We made you laugh, though. Thank you.
You enjoyed your food, though, by the sound.
Yeah, I did, absolutely.
Well, anybody else cooking, it's always wonderful.
Just one last question. What did the corgis have in there? What
Oh,
would be the best-
it just depended what they were. You know, some days it'd be rabbit, and other days it'd be beef, and another. You know, it's always something quite simple.
They didn't have the old sort of planned pellets then.
No, none of that.
No, there's marvellous, work in pet food now. I mean, the stuff that I buy for my cat, it's all the little pellets. It's all got science written all over it saying that it's all very good. But they had proper organic.
Oh,
they had proper.
They had proper stuff. They had cabbage and they had rice and. I used to try it out on the policemen just to see it, but they never knew.
Yes.
Was there the food for the corgis and the animals? Was that as the same or as good as the food that was cooked for the royal family?
Of course it was, absolutely. Of course, you had to do the carrots for the horses and with Her Majesty and things like little packages. And
Yes. Well, I know.
many talents in the kitchen.
Excellent. All right, well, thanks, guys. I'm rather hungry, so I think we should maybe try and arrange a lunch or pop out now and get ourselves something to eat. But thanks very much for coming on. I really appreciated it, so thanks, guys.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you,
Thank you,
Mervyn.
Matt. Thank you.
Well, I hope you found that as fascinating as we did here. Thanks for watching. If you like the show, please press subscribe and leave a comment because we do read them. And we will see you again next week.